Do you hate Jewish people?
No, I don't.
Then why do you spew such hatred about them?
I mean, I was horrified to find that they mass murdered Christians. I was horrified to learn the things that they teach in the Talmud. I was horrified that they think that Jesus is burning in shit in hell. I was horrified that they think that the Virgin Mary is a whore. I was horrified to learn that they think it's okay to steal from Gentiles. I was horrified to hear that there's, two sets of justice. I was horrified to find out that they think it's okay to, gang rape Palestinian prisoners. I was horrified about all those things. I'm horrified that we're funding a genocide right now. So
Piers Morgan called him a Nazi, live, on camera. And the man just kept talking. I want to be honest with you before we get into this one. This is not a comfortable clip. Some of what Dan Bilzerian says in this interview I do not agree with, and I am not going to pretend otherwise. But here is what I need you to watch for. Because it is bigger than Dan Bilzerian, and it is bigger than Piers Morgan. Watch the moment Piers runs out of counter-argument. Watch the exact second the substance stops and the label starts. Because that moment, that precise pivot from engagement to accusation, is something I have watched happen to people my entire life. In classrooms, in boardrooms, in living rooms. The moment someone says something that cannot be easily answered, the name comes out. And once the name is out, the argument is over. No receipts required, no rebuttal necessary. Just the label and the silence it is designed to create. What you are about to watch is what happens when the label does not create silence, when someone just keeps talking anyway. And Piers Morgan, one of the most experienced interviewers in the world, had absolutely no idea what to do next. I am Silas Miller. This is Miller's Mandate. Whatever you think about what gets said in this clip, you need to see what happens when the shutdown tactic stops working. Hit subscribe. Let's get into it.
I mean, that's the problem, is you can say whatever you want against Muslims. You can be, super anti-Muslim. You can talk about them and nobody cares. But if you say anything about Jewish people, you get canceled. They, look what they did to Kanye. I mean, so why are they such a protected class? Let me ask you that.
I don't think they are. I think they're a class that get targeted by people like you, and indeed by Kanye, who spewed horrible anti-Semitic nonsense. But yours seems to me to be more insidious, because you're literally blaming.
So you think Kanye
with respect,
targeted
let me
them
finish.
and not the other way around?
You're literally blaming Jewish people for almost everything that's happened that you don't like in the world. That is the purest personification of anti-Semitism right there. That's what it is.
Well, when you have a religion that promotes supremacy, when you have a religion that says that you are better than other people, and when you have a religion that says it's okay to steal from other people as long as they're not Jewish, when you have a religion that says it's okay to rape people that aren't Jewish, when you have a religion that talks about having sex with, kids that are under 3 years old, when you have a religion that promotes these things and promotes supremacy, I think you're going to have problems. And you see that in Israel. Israel is a manifestation of that religion. And I think that religion is, it's terrible. I don't believe in white supremacy. I don't believe in Jewish supremacy. I don't believe in supremacy at all. And right now, I think you have massive Jewish supremacy.
You sound like a Nazi.
I mean, why do you say that?
That's literally what Nazis would have said in World War II. They would have literally articulated their hatred of Jewish people and the reasons why in exactly the way you've just done.
I don't have a hatred for Jewish people.
You do?
I don't like a religion that says that they're better than other people. And what's that?
Well, you do. You obviously do. It's blatant. No one watching this will draw any other conclusion. I'm staggered about how brazen you've been.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't like it when people think they're better than other people. And you see that in Israel, and they're acting like that, and they're treating Palestinians like second-class citizens. They're treating them like subhuman beasts, and it sells that in their Talmud. So it says if you are not a Jew, that you are basically subhuman. And I don't think that Judaism and Christianity go hand in hand. I mean, they believe that Jesus is in hell burning in human shit, and they believe the Virgin Mary is a whore. So I don't think those are two religions that really intersect very well. But we've been programmed that they do, and we've been programmed that it's okay and that Jews are the chosen people, and I just disagree with that. I think everybody's equal.
Do you even comprehend how this interview is going to play out when it airs?
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be bad, but my opinion is not politically correct, but I believe that is the truth.
You're living in Qatar now.
Well, that's where I'm at right now. I'm not living here, but visiting.
Right? Is it the case that you feel safer to spew this kind of stuff from Qatar than you would spewing it in the United States?
Well, I mean, I've had a lot of Jewish people attack me since I started standing up in support of Palestine. When I started saying things that were against Israel, I found that I had my Jewish business manager tried to extort me. I had lawyers do things that were illegal, and I found a lot of just hatred from the Jewish community because I was speaking out against a genocide, and that really opened my eyes to what's going on.
You know why Jewish people?
Like I said, rarely is it the case that people on the right side of history are the ones that are trying to silence people.
Yeah, the reason Jewish people may dislike you is because of your obvious hatred for them and everything they stand for. I mean, you've literally spent the last 20 minutes on an anti-Semitic rant that makes Kanye look like a choir boy. I'm staggered, but also bemused as to what you think you'll gain from this, other than you're just laying bare your anti-Semitism for everyone to see.
I don't think I'm going to gain anything. I think it'll be horrible for me, but it's what I believe. I don't think that Jews like Christians, and you see it when they killed them during the Holodomor, the Bolshevik genocide. I mean, the Bolsheviks, the leadership was 84% Jewish, and they were just mass killing Christians, and nobody talks about that.
Let me just ask you one more time. Let me just ask you one more time to be honest.
History books don't cover that.
Right, let me just ask you one more time, just for clarity. And I think you should be honest. But do you hate Jewish people?
No, I don't.
Then why do you spew such hatred about them?
Well, I don't like what they've done. I don't like what their religion preaches. I don't like what's going on in Israel. I don't like their influence over our government. So,
What do you like about Jewish people?
I mean, I would say on average, they're more intelligent.
That's it?
I mean, I don't have too many. I mean, look, there's 2 billion Muslims, but everybody wants to, promote this anti-Muslim, this hatred for Muslim, like they're all, these terrorists. And I think the Israelis are the terrorists. I think they are the ones perpetuating the big acts of terrorism. And, nobody wants to talk about that.
And what do you say to Jewish people who may watch this and be utterly horrified by what they're hearing?
They can be horrified. I mean, I was horrified to find that they mass murdered Christians. I was horrified to learn the things that they teach in the Talmud. I was horrified that they think that Jesus is burning in shit in hell. I was horrified that they think that the Virgin Mary is a whore. I was horrified to learn that they think it's okay to steal from Gentiles. I was horrified to hear that there's, 2 sets of justice. I was horrified to find out that they think it's okay to, gang rape Palestinian prisoners. I was horrified about all those things. I'm horrified that we're funding a genocide right now. So they can be horrified.
Dan Bilzerian.
Let me be honest with you from the very start. And I mean genuinely honest. Not the kind of honest that sounds brave, but is actually just comfortable. Some of what Dan Bilzerian said in that interview, I cannot stand behind. Some of it was inflammatory. Some of it crossed lines that I think matter. And I am not going to sit here and dress that up as pure truth-telling just because it makes for a powerful clip. That would be lazy. And this channel does not do lazy. But here is what I need you to understand, because this clip is not really about Dan Bilzerian, and it is not really about Piers Morgan either. It is about something much older and much more important than either of those two men. It is about what happens when a label gets used as a weapon instead of a description. I grew up in a house where my father had a saying. He repeated so many times it became wallpaper. He said, "Silas, The moment someone stops answering your question and starts describing you, you have already won the argument. They just do not know it yet. I heard that so many times as a kid that I stopped really listening to it. And then I got older, and I started watching interviews like this one, and I understood what he meant in a way that hit me somewhere much deeper than my head. Piers Morgan is not an amateur. He is one of the most experienced broadcast interviewers on the planet. He has sat across from world leaders, convicted criminals, celebrities, and heads of state. He knows exactly what he is doing in front of a camera at all times. So when Piers Morgan reaches for a label, when he says you sound like a Nazi, that is not an emotional slip. That is a choice. That is a professional broadcaster making a calculated decision to end an argument he does not have the receipts to win on substance. And that choice, that specific professional calculated choice, is what the audience in that comment section was reacting to. Not the content of what Bilzerian said, the mechanics of how Piers responded to it. The top comment on that video has nearly 4,000 likes. It says, simply, "I think people are equal." Piers, you sound like a Nazi. That comment is not defending Bilzerian. It is exposing the absurdity of a tactic. It is saying, you cannot call someone a Nazi for saying people are equal, and when that is your strongest counter-argument, you have already lost. Now let us talk about what was actually being argued, because this is where I need to separate two things that are being deliberately kept tangled together in this conversation, and in most conversations like it. There is a difference between criticizing the state of Israel and its government's actions, which is a legitimate political position held by millions of people around the world, including Jewish people, and expressing hatred toward Jewish people as a group. That distinction matters enormously. It is not a technicality. It is the entire ballgame. And the reason that distinction keeps getting collapsed, the reason criticism of a government keeps getting equated with hatred of a people, is because collapsing that distinction is strategically useful to people who do not want the government's actions examined too closely. When nearly 500 people like a comment that says, "Anytime you speak inconvenient truth about Israel, they label you an anti-Semite," those people are not expressing hatred. They are expressing exhaustion. They are exhausted by a rhetorical environment where the label arrives before the argument, where the accusation substitutes for the engagement, where you can shut down a conversation about foreign policy funding and military action by invoking a word that carries the weight of the worst atrocity in modern human history. That is an enormous amount of power to concentrate in a single label. And when that label gets deployed carelessly, when it gets used against people for saying things that are factually uncomfortable rather than actually hateful, it does something dangerous. It dilutes its own meaning. It trains people to treat the accusation as a deflection rather than a serious charge. And that makes the world less safe for the people it was originally designed to protect. That is not a progressive opinion. That is what happens when any powerful tool gets overused. It loses its edge. Now I want to talk about Piers Morgan specifically, because he represents something in this clip that goes beyond this one interview. Piers Morgan has built a second career, after his first career ended in disgrace, on being the guy who asks the hard questions. The uncensored voice. The man who will say what others will not. That is his brand. That is what he sells. And in this interview, when faced with arguments he could not counter with evidence, he reached for the oldest and most comfortable exit in the modern media playbook. He called the man a Nazi and declared, "That is not the behavior of someone who asks hard questions. That is the behavior of someone who is very good at performing the asking of hard questions while making sure the answers never land anywhere inconvenient." One comment said it with devastating simplicity. He does not call him a liar. Notice that. In a nearly 35-minute interview, Piers Morgan never once said, "That specific claim you just made is factually wrong, and here is the evidence." He said, "You sound like a Nazi." He said, "I am staggered by your brazenness." He said, "No one watching will draw any other conclusion." But he did not say, "That is factually incorrect." Because saying that requires receipts, and receipts require preparation. And preparation requires taking the argument seriously, instead of just waiting for the moment to deploy the label. And here is the thing that I think matters most for everyone watching this channel. For the working people. For the people who have been told their entire lives that certain questions are too dangerous to ask, that certain topics are off limits, that certain combinations of words make you a bad person regardless of what you actually mean or what evidence you are actually pointing to. The most powerful thing the establishment has, more powerful than money, more powerful than media access, more powerful than political connections, is the ability to define which conversations are allowed to happen, which questions are legitimate, which concerns are acceptable. And the primary tool for enforcing those boundaries is not argument. It is social consequence. It is the label. It is the name. It is the thing that makes people around you go quiet and look away so that you feel the full weight of social isolation and learn, for next time, to stay inside the lines. Dan Bilzerian said in this interview, "I know this will be bad for me. I know this will be horrible." He said it twice, and he kept talking anyway. I am not endorsing everything he said. I have been clear about that. But I want to sit with that moment for a second. The moment where someone says, "I understand the consequences, and I am going to say it anyway." Because whether you agree with the content or not, that is a person operating outside of fear. And watching someone operate outside of fear in a media environment that runs almost entirely on fear is genuinely rare. The mandate is built on the same principle: truth over access. That means we do not get to pick only the comfortable truths. We do not get to call out the powerful only when calling them out is safe. We do not get to defend free and honest conversation only when we agree with everything being said. Because the moment you make truth conditional on your own comfort, you have stopped telling it. Whatever you think about Dan Bilzerian, whatever you think about this interview, the question that this clip forces you to ask, the question that nearly 1,000 people like to comment about, is this. When someone makes a claim and the only response is a label, who is really afraid of the truth? I will let you sit with that. If this one made you think, not just feel, but actually think, share it. That is the kind of conversation Miller's mandate exists to have. Subscribe if you want more of it, and drop in the comments where you landed on this one, because I genuinely want to know. This is not a simple one. And the people in this audience are not simple people. I am Silas Miller. We do not pick comfortable truths here. The mandate does not stop.